So we're here at the IFA Conference on day 2, and we just had a very interesting chat about cybersecurity. We have the very experienced Andrew Hudson giving his valuable insights. Do you want to give us a brief about what was discussed on the panel?
Well, we talked about the need for companies and people within companies to perhaps change their attitude towards the whole cyber, to be aware of the cyber issues and to respond to them and be aware of them and then be able to have a proper response in place. And I think in our industry, everything is just in time. Everything is quick. We have business guidelines, we have government statutory guidelines. So the natural inclination is, oh, whoops, that's important, I've got to deal with it straight away. Or it's interesting. We don't characterise it as potentially being a threat. And I think we've got to change that mindset. And it applies to the logistics industry, but also the lawyers. I mean, you know, if someone sends you an email and it doesn't appear you know them, but if it says, we want to pay your account, you're not going to say no. The instinct is to take it up and then provide bank details. So we've got to train ourselves out of that.
Yeah, you mentioned a very interesting fact that I guess as freight forwarders, we're always, yes, we can do it. Yes, we can help you move your cargo. But I guess there's some very interesting points to make about, let's stop and think about the risks of just saying yes. What do you think something that you could share with members about how we assess the true risks? I guess it's a bold question, but...
Yeah. And I think in part it's back to the individual. I mean, you can have an IT desk, you can have a cybersecurity consultant, but it's back to the individual who receives the email, and they will identify who they, and that they will think it's important. So for us, we got phished at one stage, an apparently legitimate name with an apparently legitimate email address, and then they exploited that. So we now, you've learned, a lot of law firms get hacked that way. So we didn't have a ransomware attack. It was more a case of it let people into our, and it happened very briefly within about a 10-minute space. So we've learned from that, and we've had to sort of teach people, and we've got internal courses we have to do to not jump on things straight away necessarily. If you're in the middle of a transaction, you know who you're dealing with, but it's the unexpected approaches from people who might be in your world, but you haven't heard from a while.
Yes, yeah.
Or it's like, hang on, I thought that person was deceased. I mean, they sort of got...
Yeah, it's kind of retraining the brain about to think of risk.
Well, it is, and we're a service industry. We respond to requests for information or respond to help. I mean, the number of times we get grumpy because people don't respond to our emails, and if that's the KPI, it's like, oh, I better respond to it. Oh, no, I don't want to because it's dangerous. So it's going to be employer-employee type position, but also the customers have to acknowledge that it's in their interest too that we do this properly. Yeah. Otherwise, things get shut down like ports and transactions, and it ends up ugly.
Yeah.
So,
how important do you think, I guess the Home Affairs was on the panel today, but how important is it that government and the private sector work together? Yeah,
and look, I'm a big fan of that across the board. I sit on pretty much every advisory group between government agencies at the border and the private sector.
Well, thank you for doing that on behalf of our members.
Well, that's okay. I mean, if I didn't think it was interesting and worthwhile, I wouldn't do it. I'm not just doing it about myself, but I think it's a worthwhile exercise. But government and the private sector, or industry as you want to call it, if they don't engage and work out stuff together, it's going to end up, you end up in your own trenches and you don't actually learn from it.
Yeah.
If government's doing stuff, they've got to tell us, give us a warning if they can. And on the other side, we're the ones who say, well, we're trying to be hacked. This is what you've got to look out for. So the engagement between government and private sector is vital, in particular in this area, especially when a lot of what we're doing, it's not necessarily a financial thing, but it's movement of goods.
Yeah, well, our industry is so critical to GDP. There's so many aspects, paying out duties, high value things.
Yeah. And moving stuff. I mean, this is one of the classic things is, we have access through the ICS, Integrated Cargo System, to where goods are, whether they're being moved to customs control or whether they're in an X-ray facility. Now, we know that, but we're not supposed to tell anybody about that. And that's why they try and basically hack into individuals who have access to the system. And bad actors will pay people to actually give them access to the system. So somebody who's an ICS user might find themselves being persuaded by a bad actor to hand over information. So that's the test is, how much are you prepared to resist that, or how much are you prepared to actually identify it as what it is? And you might think it's harmless to say it's it's a customer's X-ray. But that is in fact vital. If they know it's gone to customer's X-ray, you're not going to get it. They aren't going to pick the goods up at the end of the day.
Yes,
They're going to run away and go somewhere else. So yeah, it is vital, and we've seen with infrastructure, the port system and all that. If a provider gets hacked, then goods don't move.
Yeah, it was quite frightening, and I can recall a few times where containers had stopped, even going back to when Maersk or the shipping lines were attacked and EDOs weren't being released. It was somewhat frightening to know that we are all held ransom to one particular industry.
And that's it. And a lot of the people who are the ones who get dragged into it, they don't have the level of sophistication. So it's back to what is a rule we can apply across the board, which is to stop and think about it first. Try and work out whether a message that makes entire sense. I mean, it happens on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, you communicate with one another, and then you've got a person saying, "Oh, I'd rather deal with WhatsApp." And it's like, okay, why do you want to get into my personal WhatsApp?
Why are so many means of communication?
Precisely. Why are all these attractive young women sending me messages on LinkedIn to go to WhatsApp? It's like, even I realise that that's not legit. Yeah.
It's very interesting, and there's so many things I think we can all learn together. And
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being a panelist. Very interesting time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.